Alvin, what do you think? Y plus 4 times. How did he get that from? Where did he get that? This is a difference of square, isn't that right? Isn't this nothing more than y squared minus 4 squared? Do you see why learning how to factor kind of helps us? Because if you didn't know how to factor, there's no way you're going to get the right answer, right? You can't factor. You can't solve this. So you're right. It becomes y plus 4 times y minus 4. I wrote down y minus 4 first. Of course, it doesn't matter. Now, do you see, can I use the zero product property now? Yes. When will this be 0? When? Hello? When? William? Oh, right. You got the answer. But let's show the work. When y minus 4 equals to 0, or when y plus 4 equals to 0. Okay. So don't worry about on the left side. I'm going to show you that. Don't worry about that. So, what? So you get. Let me try to hide this thing. Oops. Sorry. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this is true only when what? When y minus 4 equals to 0, or when y plus 4 equals to 0, right, guys? So, of course, then when you solve for y, you get y equals to 4 or y equals to negative 4, and there's your solution. Any question? There, right, you get 2 possible solutions. Any question there? Are you good? Yes. Yeah, when y equals negative 4, the whole thing will be 0. When y equals to 4, the whole thing will be 0. Well, was it 0 at the beginning? It was, if you look at the, if you look at the very, when you plug in y equals to 4 or y equals negative 4, if you look at the original equation, it'll equal to 80, right? But in order to solve that, you had to make it equal to 0. Does that make sense? So when you're looking at the original equation, yeah, when you plug in negative 4 or 4, there are 2 possible solutions. It'll equal to 80. Okay. By the way, the thing, you don't have to write this down, but if you forgot to simplify, I want to show you how it's not that difficult. If you forgot to simplify at the very beginning, if you just blindly, you just saw that and you forgot to simplify, you could just subtract 80 both sides and then solve that way. It still works out. Because then, don't you get 5y squared minus 80 equals 0? Then what do? You try to factor the left side by, yes. Factoring out the GCF is correct. And when you do, then you get 5 times y squared minus 16. Of course, then you get the same exact result. I just wanted to show you that if you forgot to simplify in the beginning, you still get the same answer. Does that make sense? Okay, but it's more work, isn't it? If you could simplify, it's less work, but it's not that much of a big deal. By the way, let me ask you this: is it okay if you see how I had 5 times minus? If I forgot to simplify at the very beginning, you see how I get 5 times y minus 4 times y plus 4 equals 0? Is it okay to divide both sides by 5? Could you divide both sides of an equation by the same number? Would it be still equivalent? Yeah, so is it okay? Yeah, what do you get when you do that? Yeah, you get 0 on the right side. You still get the same thing as what we had before. You see what I mean? So if you forgot to simplify in the beginning, you could simplify at the end if you want. But you could, of course, divide, add, subtract both sides by the same number, can't you? Right? They're all equivalent. Just wanted to show you that. But I think best way is if you simplify it at the very beginning, just makes it a lot easier. Okay, may I go into another example then? Yes? So now here's example 4. Everybody go ahead and try, see if you can do this yourself. Okay, first of all, what are you going to try to do? You want to use, by the way, this is not linear equation, right? So you got to use zero product property. That's the only way you know how to solve. So what do you think I have to do here? Yes, sir? Yeah, you got to first make it equal to 0, right? That's why it's called zero product property, and try to factor the left side, right? Everybody go ahead and try. Give you some time. All right, so did you all subtract both sides by 10 first? Because in order to use the zero product property, the first step is to make sure that the whole equation equals to 0. Otherwise, you can't use zero product property. See, equation must equal to 0 first, okay? Then you have a trinomial. Does this trinomial, what are you going to try to do with this trinomial? You got to try to factor, right, Vlad? Because in order to use zero product property, it's not written as a product yet. Vlad, what are you going to try for 6x squared? How many ways are there to get 6x squared? There are 4? how is it 4?
1, 6, and negative 1.
Oh, remember we don't want to deal with the negatives for.
Okay,
So there's 2. 1, 6, and 1x and 2x and 1x and 6x and 2x and. Which one would you like to try first? Remember I gave you a big hint. 2x and 3x. Did you all try 2x and 3x? And plus something? What about for negative 10? For 10 they're 1 times 10, 2 times 5, that's it, right? But one of them has to be what? Negative, because you have to have negative 10. Which one? Did anybody figure this out already? Yes, sir. What did you get? Oh, okay. So you want to plug in negative 2 and 5. Would that work, guys? Does this work? Let's see. 3x times 2x, you get 6x squared. What's 3x times 5? 15. Positive 15. What's 2x times negative 2? Negative 4. Does that give us positive 11x? Yes, and then negative 2 times negative 5, we get negative 10, which is good. Yes, it works. So therefore, it becomes this. Right, guys? Eddie, when would this be true? This, now we have written this as a product. Eddie, when will this be true?
If 2x plus 5 equals 0.
Yeah, this is only true if 2x plus 5 equals 0 or when?
3x minus 2.
Exactly right. There are 2 possible ways for this whole thing to be equal to 0. That's only if one of those factors, right, are 0. So Chris, when will 2x plus 5 be 0? What do I do, Chris? Christopher? So when will 2x plus 5 be 0? First you subtract 5 from both sides, then divide by 2, which you get is negative. Oh, negative 2.5, or just leave it as improper fraction. Negative 5 over 2, isn't that right? What about the other one, Chris? You add to both sides and then divide by 3, which is 3 over 2. How many forgot the 2 solutions like this? Negative 5 over 2 and 2/3. Raise your hand. Okay, good. If you didn't, anyone have any question? Does this make sense? In other words, when you plug in, here's my original equation. I wrote it on the right side. If you were to plug in negative 5 over 2 to this original equation, it should equal to what? 10. And then if you plug in 2/3, it goes to 10 also. Right? Does that make sense? Right? But there are so many ways to get 10. That's why we made it into 0 first. Right? That's why we use the 0 product property to figure this out. Any question? Is this easy or hard? Do you see why we learn how to factor these polynomials? Yes. Okay, good. Good. Okay, then everybody go ahead and try example 5. I'll give you some time. This one is nice. Why? It's already equal to 0. Okay, but is the left side factored? No. Okay, so go ahead, everybody try. All right, so what should we do first here before we do anything? One person? Come on. 2. Is this easy? Is this too easy or something? Okay. That's good, because that means you really worked hard to understand how to factor, because then it just makes the rest of them really easy, right? William, what do I do here? I should factor out 6x, right, from each of those terms. And did you get this, William? 6x times 3x squared plus 11x minus 4. Yes, good. Now, this trinomial, how many ways are there to get 3x squared, guys, when you factor? 1, 3x, and x. And how many ways are there to get negative 4? 1, 4, and 2, 2. Which one works, guys? Paul, can you tell me what you get? Now, how do you factor this trinomial, Paul? 3x minus 3?
3x minus 1.
Oh, 3x minus 1 times x plus 4. Does it work, guys? Does that work? Let's check. There you go. We get 3x times 4, which is 12x, plus negative x is 11x. You're right. So we get this. This whole factors to 6x times the whole expression on the left factors as 6x times 3x minus 1 times x plus 4. Claire, when would this be true? By the way, how many solutions do you think we're going to get, class? Raise your hand. Can you use your fingers? 1, 2, 3, like this. Which one? By the way, use the right fingers. Oh, yes. I see 2. Alvin, why do you say 2? How many factors do you have on the left side? 3. How many solutions do you think you're going to get? Oh, you want to change your mind now? Okay, when will this be true, class? When? Who could tell me? This is only true if, you're right, we do get 3 solutions. Victor, if?
If 6x equals 0.
Good.
3x minus 1 equals 0.
Or?
Or x equals 4.
That's correct. And when will 6x equals to 0, guys? When x equals to 0. When? What? Okay. Question. Oh yeah, could I divide both sides by 6x? No. Could we divide both sides by 6? Yes. You don't want to divide both sides by 6x. Why not? What happens if you divide by 6x? One person. Then?
Then 0 can't be a solution.
Yeah, and you're losing one of your solutions. When we learn the property equality, you could divide both sides by the same number, not a variable. You can't divide by a variable. Does that make sense? So you could divide both sides by 6, that's fine. It doesn't affect any of the solutions, does it? But you cannot divide by 6x, okay? Then you lose one of your solutions. Okay, so you're right. So x could be 0, x could be 1/3, or x could be -4. Did you all get this? So I wrote down -4, 0, and 1/3. Again, I'm glad you asked that one. Do not divide both sides by 6x. You could divide both by 6, that's fine, if 6 is your GCF, but not 6x. Then you lose one of your solution. You don't want to lose one of your solution because you'll be wrong if you just give me 2 of them. Does this make sense? Alvin, is that why you said there were 2 solutions? Did you divide both sides by 6x too? Oh, you just did, okay. All right, may I move on? Okay, questions? See, Gemma, you kind of read my mind because I was going to do this anyway. By the way, oops, let me not. So let me write this down. Be careful. If I have x times x minus 1 equals 0, how many solutions do I have for this? First of all, can I use zero product property right away?
Yes.
Yes, I can. It equals to 0. First of all, that's the first thing you check. Whether or not that equation equals to 0. And whether or not it's factored. On the left side, it's factored. So what are your solutions? When x equals to 0, as you can see, 0 times anything is 0. 0 or what?
X is
1, right? Right? Isn't that right, guys? You could add both sides by 1. Right? Now, the reason why I wrote be careful is because, Gemma, I wrote this down. Do not divide both sides by x, or one of the variable. Because what happens if you do that? Let's say that we just divide both sides by x, thinking, oh, that's a GCF, why not just divide it? You could divide both sides by a number, not a variable, because then when you do this, you just get x plus x minus 1 equals 0. You only get how many solution? 1, which is wrong because you lose one of your solution. Right? Okay. Does that make sense? So please don't divide both sides by a variable. Okay? Because if you keep doing it, why not then divide both sides by x minus 1, right? Then you get 1 equals to 0. Then you get, there's no solution, right? 1 is never equals to 0. You can't do that. So do not divide both sides by a variable. You could divide both sides by a GCF if it's a number. Okay, if it's a number, it's fine. Not a variable. Okay? So be careful. Here's the last example for the day. Try this yourself. Don't talk to anybody. See if you could do it by yourself, because this is kind of interesting. X squared times x squared minus 5 equals to -4. By the way, isn't this nice? It's already factored. Isn't that great? Not necessarily in this case. Well, how come? This time it doesn't really matter if it's factored or the left. It does not really matter if the left side is factored. Why not? Anybody see? Yes. It doesn't equal to 0. Right? So what do you have to do first? You have to add 4. As soon as you add 4, is the left side factored then? No, see, it doesn't really help you too much. Does that make sense? So then what do you do? Okay, go ahead, everybody try. What should you do? So what do? The left side isn't factored. Anybody know what to do here? Eric? Oh, why do you want to distribute this x squared? Even though I had the arrows there. Yeah, so I can make it a trinomial, exactly. Only way, right? Only chance that you have is to make the left side, simplify the left side so that you could, get something that you could factor. So you're right, you can make it into a trinomial, I think. So now you have a trinomial, right? X to the 4th minus 5x squared plus 4. Isn't that right? So does this trinomial factor?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.